Everybody, we are back. Grace and peace. Good to see you all. Thank you so much for tapping in with us on this evening. Tonight, I got a special show because we're going to sit down with some dads and we're going to be talking about the importance of being a father. Now, I know Father's Day just passed, but I don't want to. Father's Day is every day. We're going to talk about dads. We're going to celebrate what dads do and bring into the equation. So we're going to talk about it on tonight. There is a very interesting article that I picked up from Wise over at A Righteous Perspective earlier this week, talking about the roles that fathers, the role of fatherhood and what the value that it brings to the family. And I just want to talk about it with some of my guests. Now, the first guest I have, I got a couple of mine are running late, so we're gonna have to stall, but that's okay because y'all gonna appreciate my first guest for sure. We got Wise from A Righteous Perspective. Grace and peace, friend.
Appreciate you. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me in. Appreciate you.
Amen.
Appreciate you. Hey, I finally got the invite, so hey, I'm here, man. I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Y'all know now, y'all, if you are a guest of the channel and you're familiar with Wise, y'all know we are blessed today, y'all. Because he done took off his bonnet, he done stayed in the studio, he is ready to be here. You know, this is usually his bedtime. He already got his little
It,
warm milk and is reading his books, reading his magazine on the way to bed. But he has stayed
yep.
up for us. So we are going to have a great conversation. Now, if you don't mind, real quick, if for those that don't know, can you tell us about your channel?
Yeah. So I am Wise. My channel is A Righteous Perspective. You can find me on TikTok, or not TikTok, but on X in that same manner. The channel itself, it is a channel that mainly focuses on what's happening politically. We're looking at things, from a conservative lens, but really we're looking at conservative issues from a biblical lens. I am a follower of Christ, and the channel is kind of try to keep things in line right there. So, Jason, man, appreciate you having me up, man. I'm excited to be here, man. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm glad to have you, man. Thank you so much. Now, my opening salvo was to get everybody an opportunity to kind of talk about who they are, what their channels are about, what their book is about, whatever like that. And then also the most important question for tonight is how long have you been a father? So most people know that I'm the proud father of two. And so I've technically been a father for 17 years. But what about yourself, my brother?
Yeah, same here. Proud father too. Been a dad for 20. Let's see, 24 years, I believe.
Oh,
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, my oldest son will be 24 next week.
okay.
So yeah,
Well, congratulations to him. All right, so
thank you.
let's jump into this. And we're going to get popping because I don't want to be super late. But this is an article from the Virginia, just so everybody knows, the University of Virginia. And I will drop the link to it as well. Let me grab that while we're talking. And it was a great study. It says, Good fathers, flourishing kids. Now, most everybody knows that I'm a former classroom teacher. And I can tell you that as a former teacher, we absolutely adored when dads were a part of their kids' life. Now we appreciate moms and grandmas and aunties as well, but when dads were a part of the kids' lives, Wise, it really made a big difference. It made a huge difference when during open house, dad came to the classroom along with mom, even if they weren't together. When dad came to the classroom during open house, there was a big difference than when mom and auntie and grandma came. I mean,
I
that's a
have a
big difference too.
question.
That's support. Say again.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Being a
Go ahead.
teacher, and I
Yes,
can
sir.
speak on it from being a coach, but do you see a difference in the children? When dad's involved.
Absolutely.
Like could you meet a child and almost, maybe not 100% of the time, but almost you could say, okay, dad's involved in this
You
child's life. Could you meet him?
you could almost do it with 100% accuracy.
Okay.
You could almost
Yep.
100% with accuracy. There's just a lot of little key nuances that you reckon, little breadcrumbs that you'll see, and like, oh, dad's in the house.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. Yep.
And
I thought the
um,
same thing. I coached football for wow, 13 years up
mhm.
here, middle school level. I coached from sixth grade to eighth grade. And almost the first meeting of my players, when you are, trying to, you meet, I'm coach, shake the hand, how they handle that initial greeting. I mean, and you're right, almost 100% accuracy. You could tell, okay, dad's around. or man, it's only mom. And I started to notice that. I started to notice it probably after a couple years of doing it and really kind of paying attention
For
to
sure.
what's going on. But yeah, there's definitely a difference for sure.
No question about it. So, good fathers, flourishing kids, the importance of fatherhood in Virginia. And I'm going to just say, Virginia, if you are from Virginia, this is no slight to you all, but y'all, let me just tell you, the importance of fatherhood is universal. We all need good fathers. So I'm gonna steal that from y'all, Virginia. You can't keep that one. All right. So children in Virginia, and I just say all around the world, are more likely to flourish when their fathers are engaged and or present. This is one of the conclusions of the Good Fathers Flourishing Kids, the importance of fatherhood in Virginia, a new report from the intellectually diverse group of scholars at the University of Virginia, an American Enterprise Institute, the American Enterprise of Boys and Men, and the Brookings Institute, the National Center for Black Family Life at Hampton University, and the Institute of Family Studies and a National Marriage Project. Wow. A lot of people have tapped into this thing for sure. Now, the report, which is sponsored by the National Marriage Project at UVA and the National Center for Black Family at Hampton University, conveys 5 sets of key findings and 6 recommendations to strengthen fatherhood and families in Virginia. I'm going to just take it again and just say fathers and families. This is please understand, fathers in the home was God's ultimate design. So therefore, Virginia, love y'all like a biscuit, but y'all can't get that. That's everybody needs to hold on to that. Hey, anything you want to jump in before we 'cause I know you talked about this as well, hence where I got this
Mm-hmm.
from, Wise. Anything
Mm-hmm.
you want to put in?
The thing that I appreciated a lot, and my story actually came from Fox News, but I mean it's the same thing, same study. The thing that I appreciated a lot was the fact that it wasn't just UVA. I really love the fact that Hampton University got involved in this, so you could not only so people wouldn't come out here and say, "Oh, the data and all this is skewed," in one direction from a racial standpoint. I
Oh, for
really
sure.
really appreciated the fact that Hampton was involved in this, and they looked at it. So therefore, when the data came out, no one could come out and say, "Well, yeah, it's like that for white families," but you know. We didn't get a chance to do the study on us for us, so we don't know if the studies would correlate. And so I really, really appreciated Hampton being a part of it.
I agree 100%. And please understand, um, I am a strong proponent for families in general, but
Absolutely.
I'm a super strong proponent for Black families. Our families only thrive. And I have an author, a guest that's supposed to come on, who's wrote a book about that particular topic, and it's called Missing Pillars. And I really believe that all of society benefits when Black families are doing well, thriving, and prospering. And not to make them a little fiefdom of their own, but everybody benefits as this group of people flourish and thrive. But let's continue. All right, let's go. Number 1. This is one of the findings. Boys and girls with involved dads in the Commonwealth get better grades, are less likely to have their parents contacted about behavior or learning problems at school, and are less likely to be depressed. You want to add anything to that?
Well, I mean, the data shows that, just in, doing the research for this, and just in my own personal experience, because I
Here we go.
like
Yes,
to,
sir.
I'm looking at things from my own personal experience. And we're also looking at the research. The research says that, kids that don't have dad involved, especially if they're in broken families where dad is absolutely not involved, they're going to suffer from more issues, especially when it comes to mental health issues. There's a lot of SA issues that happen, child abuse and things of that nature.
For
So
sure.
this doesn't surprise me at all. It doesn't surprise me at all. And the data tells you this. I mean, what we do know is that when a kid is in a single family led household, particularly led by a woman, and I don't say that to denigrate women, but this is just what the data says,
Right.
there is a 70% failure rate. That's what the data says. Everybody always wants to talk about, that 30%, those anomalies, but I like to look at the percentages. And the data is against you if your child is growing up in that environment. So, man,
No, I love it. I want to point out, I want to tell a story. I'm going to probably tell anecdotal stories the whole night. So about 2 weeks ago, and I just want to focus on this little topic right here about being depressed. Because this is mental health month, and it's such like that. And hey, we got to do our own self checks, make sure our minds are right. And one of the things that I realize is that my girls, I don't know if y'all can hear them, they're in the kitchen being very loud, all three of them, my wife included.
Nope. Can't
They're
hear
just,
him at all.
oh, well, praise the Lord, because they are literally right outside the door. Um, God help me really zero in on the fact that I need to be really, they need me to be really dialed in. So, Chief Executive Second Born was at a camp a couple of weeks ago. Actually, yeah, about a week and a half ago. And she called me one day and she was freaking out. Something had happened with her phone, and it was crazy. It was bananas. And she was literally losing her mind on the phone. And I expressed to her, I said, well, baby, I need you to get yourself together because you're too far away. I can't come get you anytime. So I need you to manage this yourself. So we went through all our little processes of helping little girls stay calm, like stop and think for a second. All right, let's go. And we walked through all the little steps over the phone. Now, I'm freaking out myself because it was pretty wild. I have to tell you the story later.
Mm.
It was pretty wild. And I'm like, but I can't be out of pocket because she literally called me because she needs somebody to be in zone, to be in frame, to be like, to have themselves together, be composed, because she's not composed. She's like, I'm going to be crazy. Let me go call my dad. Because she could have called her mom. She could have called my sister-in-laws. She could have called my mom. She could have called my niece. She could call anybody. Why did she call dad? Because like he's gonna at least keep his wits about him and get me through this. And so I do think that there's something about that we are able as dads to bring a level of stability to the family. And again, no shade if you're not in the household with your child. That's not the point at all. But I think as we're aware that we bring stability to the family structure, and from there we're blessing, and our children don't have to experience the emotional upheavals that come from life. Life just be lifing. You know what I'm saying? Because one of the things that happens in life a lot of the time is people come onto my show late. And sometimes that happens. So now we got Brian Shannon, and he's up in here late. So he's already, and you're a former teacher too, man. And you black, man, you ruining the stereotype. So ladies and gentlemen, we got Brian Shannon. Shout out to Brian Shannon. How are you, man?
I'm good, brother. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. I see that well-placed book back there over your shoulder. I
Oh,
see what you
nice.
did
Okay.
there. I see what you did there.
Okay.
So real quick, Brian, first of all, introduce Wise. This is Brian. And Brian, real quick, tell us who you are, what you're about, and and how long have you been a father?
Yeah. Thanks. So I'm Brian Shannon. I'm actually a full-time pastor on staff, Cornerstone Chapel in Leesburg, Virginia. I've been in full-time ministry now 3 years, right? 3 years actually this month. 3 years. And I've been a dad. Well, first I was a husband first, right? So
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
let me clarify that. So I've been a husband for 26 years,
Nice.
and a dad for 19 of those years. Dad to two children.
There we go.
And so 19 is my oldest, and I have a 15-year-old. So dad of two, husband of one wife,
There you go.
and trying to keep that going. But yeah, and so in addition to full-time ministry, I'm also an author of a book that I wrote 3 years ago, Father's Day, called Missing Pillars, America's Black Father Absence Crisis, and how the Christian church helped me to overcome it.
I love it. Well, thank you, man, Brian. I really appreciate you. And I'd like to promote that book because I found it to be extremely beneficial. If you could drop it in the chat so people can, the Book Baby account, so they can go by and check it out. Because I'm going to talk about it because I found the book to be a blessing. And
I want to say it was on your channel that I debuted that published book.
I'm honored to do it. I'll do it again. Because it's a great.
Well,
great
hey,
now,
we're gonna have to reach out to you. I'm gonna have to reach out to you, man, so we can get you on the channel, man, and we can talk about it. We can help promote it.
Of course,
awesome.
Of course, love to.
I will make it happen. Now, I know you are from Virginia. Now, I'm gonna just let you know, y'all ain't claiming getting this right here. I'm not gonna let y'all have this. I ain't gonna just take over and just run the block and say, oh, everybody in Virginia. Now, this is Fatherhood Everywhere, man. Fatherhood Everywhere.
Mhm.
All right, so we've been having this conversation, Brian, about result number one, finding number one. Boys and girls with involved dads in everywhere get better grades, are less likely to have their parents contacted about behavior or learning problems at school, and are less likely to be depressed. For instance, children with less involved dads are about 2 times more likely to have parents contacted about school problems and 3.7 times more likely to be diagnosed with depression. Anything you want to throw in there, Brian? And you want to?
Well, listen, the other part of my introduction that I did not do for your audience there um, is that I spent 20 years in public education. You said I was a teacher. I spent 6 years of that time as a teacher in the classroom, but I spent the remaining time as an administrator, right? Certified principal and vice principal. And yes, I can attest to the fact that kids without fathers, it was the common denominator, were or had the highest rates of behavioral functioning issues or behavioral health issues in the school setting, right? We talk about suspension rates, things like that of that nature. If you drill down that data, you will find that those suspension rates, referral rates, were highest with regard to your population. So I was primarily in school populations of predominantly Black demographics, and so that demographic very much mirrored in the urban sectors where I worked, very much mirrored what a lot of the sad national statistics around fatherhood look like, and particularly in Black communities, that 70 to 75% of Black kids growing up without fathers in the home. 1 out of 4 Black women are married, right? And so that's a correlating data point. And so the suspension rates were high, right? And I was in the state of Maryland for the most of my tenure in public schools, and so suspension rates were high, and we had the state of Maryland saying to us, well, we need to lower these suspension rates, and Black students are disproportionately suspended at higher rates and disproportionately have referrals. But what they did not say is that they're also disproportionately without fathers in the home compared to other groups. And I think the current statistics nationally, according to research that I did for my book, was that 70 to 75% of Black children growing up without dads. In the Native American community, that's 60% of kids without dads. In the Native American community, 50% of Hispanic children growing up without dads. 35 to 40% of all white children today are growing up without fathers.
Wow.
What was the? I'm sorry, Jason. I'd like to ask one follow-up question. What was the national average?
The national average right now is 30 to 35 to 40%. So it's risen about 40% average across the board. And so yeah.
Wow.
All right. Now, if either of y'all feel free to jump in. A bonus question about this topic right here. What do you do? What are you doing to be involved with your children to ensure that they are, at least to some degree, well, you're just not at the house, eating Cheetos, sitting on the couch. So what are you doing? What do you have a regiment or anything of that nature that keeps, to keep you involved with them? Anything?
I guess I can go first. I don't do anything now because my kids are they're older. Well, one's an adult, been out of the house now for 5 years. Earlier in their lives, yeah, definitely. I coached everything. If they were whatever activity they were involved in, I was a part of it, whether it was head coach or assistant coach. From an academic perspective, the parent teacher conference, the dad with donuts, whatever it is that we could do, because a lot of times, the kids, it's not about the money with the kids. It's about you showing up and being there. So, when they would come home or field trips for that matter, any field trips and things of that nature, when it came to, schooling over the summer. Now, I'm not an educator, I'm not a teacher, but over the summer, getting them prepared for the following school year. So we do workbooks and things of that nature. It was mandatory. Introduce them to books. Mandatory book reports. I need a report, on each chapter. Just a nice little summary of what you read, just to make sure that you are reading this. And then, we talk Black history and things of that nature. I'm in Maryland, and my kids went to Maryland schools. And I stayed up here on purpose because I just thought that it would be a better situation for them in comparison to going back to the Atlanta area. But just trying to make sure that, I am there in every facet. Now, I'm not saying that I could go to every parent teacher conference, and when I couldn't, my wife would go. But any field trips, the different little dad things that they would have at the school, I'm going. And then I'm definitely there from a sports, from an athletic standpoint. And hey, man, Dad, I don't want to miss anything. My youngest son, played the violin and stuff like that. He wasn't that great, but we show up. That's what we do. Half the battle was just being there and showing up.
I like that. Half the battle is being there and showing up. How were you there, and how did you show up, Brian Shannon?
Yeah, so I would echo the sentiments of my brother there. The athletics. My daughter sings in the school choir, and so we're there. My wife, she tells me, "All right, this is in our schedule. We're there on Thursday night, right? We got a choir presentation. Ryan's got a recital, this, that, and the third. My son ran track. Early on, I coached his soccer team and things of that nature. So yes, all those things certainly we were there for. Wanted to make sure that that I was present. My wife and I both, but as a father, it was important for me to do that. But just the other thing, in addition to that, was in terms of you said what kind of traditions or what kind of things that do we regularly do to make sure that I'm building, with my children. One of the things that I teach, because I'm a men's pastor and working men's ministry at my church, and I teach a regular. And I know I'm talking about teaching men, but I'm gonna get back to the family. But I teach a regular Bible study we call biblical manhood. And one of the things that I teach men is that it is your responsibility as a man and father and husband to be a provider, protector, and a priest of the home. And so, as a priest of the home, of course, in addition to providing and protecting, my children, as a priest, my job is to teach them. And so, just tonight, before we got on, not to tout my spirituality, my spiritual works, but we were just in family devotion. So I ended family devotion, and then I got on with you guys, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing that. So even if we miss a week, I'm like, hey guys, we getting back on our regiment. We got family devotion tonight, so we want to have prayer, have a little time of worship, just so we get around the things of God, just so we're enacting Deuteronomy 6:4, where the Lord instructs Israel to hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. He said you ought to love the Lord your God, and then he says you should diligently teach these things to your children, right? And so my conviction is that I need to make sure that as a priest of my home, I'm praying for them, interceding for them, and giving them the things of God, giving them the gospel reminder of why it's important to have a relationship with God, the means by which God has provided that we can have a relationship with him through the gospel, things of that nature. So those are the things that I'm doing with them.
I love it, man. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you, Wise.
That is awesome.
All right, let's keep this.
Absolutely.
Let's keep this train a rolling. Now, about 1 in 4, and now they keep saying Virginia. I'm gonna have to take it away from y'all. About 1 in 4 Virginia children live in a home without their biological father. Boys and girls who live in a father-absent home are only about half as likely to get good grades in school, about twice as likely to be depressed, and nearly 3 times more likely to have their parents contacted about school problems compared to the boys and girls who live in intact, married, or cohabitating family with their fathers. All right. It's almost like God intended for dads to be in the house and to be that emotional anchor in their homes. And again, not saying that they're not able to do it, but I don't think it's perfect. Again, giving that structure. So we got the grades situation going on here. We got the emotional situation here, as well as being the school problems, and I'll just say behavior problems as well. And I do believe that this is very true, extremely true in here in the Metro Atlanta area. Either of y'all want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that because one of the things that I talk about regularly in my discourse, book, whatever it be, my discourse is that number one, fathers bring that stability to the home, and specifically in through the avenue through which God created complementary nature of men and women. Right? Women tend to have an emotional orientation that men don't have. Right.
Correct.
And so oftentimes when you see these black men and men in general, we're seeing a society where men are becoming more and more feminized, unfortunately. But when we talk about, I focused on the context of the black community, but we see a lot of violence, right? And a lot of in our black culture, of violence where men tend to be out of control. Right. Men tend to emote in a way that says we go emotion first when that's really out of order in terms of how God designed us. Men don't emote first naturally. We tend to rationalize first. We tend to look at, we tend to have an orientation where we're trying to, look at a circumstance and say, okay, how can I approach this circumstance? And in the home, when you have a functional man and woman in a relationship and marriage, and you got children growing up in that context, children and that stability, number one, children feel safe, right?
Correct.
Safety breeds emotional stability. When I don't feel
Mhm.
safe, how do I respond? I respond emotively first out of fear. I respond emotively first out of that emotional disarray. And so what do
Mhm.
those kids do oftentimes? You step on my shoe, I'm going to fight. Right? What
Mhm.
do I do most of the time? You call me name, I'm going to fight. Well, because I haven't learned to. Because here's what I teach my son and daughter. Wait a minute, let's talk about that. Did they do it on purpose? Wait a minute, let's
Right.
talk about that, right? And I'm not saying that women don't do that, but for the most part, what they learn from mom is how to approach a situation through the emotive lens, and what they
Mhm.
learn to do through fathers to promote to approach a healthy father to approach in a situation through a rational lens, right? And to
Correct.
combine the two, there's a time to react and respond. But I teach my children first assess the situation. And so when they come out of that framework without that balance, they tend to one operate in fear, operate out of emotional unbalance, and then you see the results of that in our society. Men quick to pick up the gun. Men quick to pick to pick the fight, to haul off, to steal on somebody, right? And these things of that nature, rather than saying, man, let's talk this out.
Oh, I love it. Wise, you got anything? Because I could talk for 2 days, so just be ready.
No, I don't have anything to add to that. He
Okay.
was 100%
I,
spot on
yeah,
there.
he's right on the money. I tell people, so Brian, I said tonight I'm gonna be the one that just tells a lot of stories about it. If you want to believe, if you want to see what Brian is saying in 4K, just do a body cam search on YouTube and watch body cam footage. Just
Mhm.
carve out about 45 minutes, watch some body cam footage, and watch men and women not be able to respond in proper ways to authority,
Mm.
to a man
Mhm.
or a woman that could take their
Mhm.
life
Mhm.
without a problem, and just watch. And it actually is universal. I've seen it with every people group. So we ain't just saying only black folk. But my point in that is
Mhm.
why? Because they've learned how to be extremely emotional.
Right.
When they get offended and they get scared, they start acting and behaving very differently than if they had a solid frame where they can learn how to deal with their emotions.
Right.
We used to tell our daughter, President Firstborn, reach up, grab your emotions, grab your emotions. They was trying to float away, pull them back down, get them out. And this is when she was younger, because she would get out of pocket. Reach up, reach up, reach up, reach up, grab your emotions,
Yeah.
pull them down. It's about to float away. But if
And
you just
Jason, if I can say this too, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but one of the things that fuels that emotional imbalance in the fatherless home is not only do they learn the emotional imbalance just by looking at mom, and not saying that all mothers are out of control, but they learn emotion first, but they're also angry. That fatherless environment produces an
That's it.
anger. At resentment, anger. I'm angry at the world. I'm living purposeless, right? Because
yep.
one of the things that a father also does is a father is supposed to be a purveyor of purpose, not only
Mm,
not only communicatively, but through example. And so when that's not there, I'm purposeless in my sphere of influence, and I'm angry because I'm trying to find and fit emotionally, psychologically, socially into a space where I feel in disarray. So, what do we do as human beings? How do we respond? I know this is some cheap psychology, but we get angry where there's uncertainty. We get angry where there's uncertainty, right? Angry when there's fear. Anger is a
Mhm.
is a natural response of fear and uncertainty. Some people will result. Some people will, respond with, I'm shaking in my boots kind of fear. But
For sure.
oftentimes, anger is a response out of fear, right? Because of uncertainty, and also that resentment and anger because I'm mad that my daddy left. Why isn't he here?
yeah.
Why don't I
Right.
have him here?
Why
Well,
does he
I
want to be a
can
part of my
I
life?
can well,
Go
I
ahead.
can appreciate that and what you're saying because I experienced that as a kid growing up. I was one of those angry children getting in trouble. Um, a lot of that had to do with the fact that my biological father wasn't there, and I had a dad in my home. My parents had been together. My stepfather was there, but it is a little different, when it's, and I had a good stepfather, but at the same time, he wasn't my dad. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I look at it completely different
How old
today.
were
I do
you?
see
How old
him
were
as
you?
that.
How old were you, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, my biological father left us, I don't know, maybe 2 years old, 3, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
And then my parents, they had been together. I mean, they've been together for 30 plus years. And my stepfather had been around, but still, it just wasn't, to me, it wasn't the same. And it's one thing to not, for a kid, it's one thing for my parents not to be together. It's another thing for you to not just come around at all. And I struggled with that growing up.
Okay.
And then being a male, trying to get an understanding of who you are, trying to figure that out. And I'm dealing with these internal eternal emotions that I have, like my father's not here. And the smallest thing, and I would be ready to, as the young people say, crash out. I'd be ready to box. And I was a fighter, probably all the way through high school, to be honest with you. And some things had to change. For me, I had to make some decisions. And then, once I graduated high school, I joined the military. And then that really, really helped me stabilize some things as an older adult. But I definitely, appreciate you saying that, because I experienced that as a young person. And I was one of those kids that was getting the referrals and, all of those types of things. I went to alternative school twice. So I was one of those kids. Lashing out and didn't really understand how to control myself.
Good catch, man. Thank you, Wise. All right, let's bring this back in. All right, number 3. There is no racial divide in academic performance or school problems between white and black children from intact families in the state. More than 85% of these children get mostly A's and B's, and less than 1 in 5 have parents contacted about school problems. By contrast, white and black children in father absent homes, that term is interesting, father absent homes, okay, do markedly worse in school. Fewer than 2/3 of black and white children from such families get good grades, and more than 1 in 3 have parents contacted for school problems. All right, either of y'all want to add something to that?
I want to add something to that.
Oh, most certainly. You can.
That is a when you think about, because on my channel we talked about this, but I also talk about the wealth disparity between single family led households and married households. When you look at married couples, regardless of race, the median household or the household income, the disparity, very minimal. If there is a difference there, it's very minimal. And it's one of the things that I talk about on the channel, man, just really trying to promote, getting married, raising your kids, something I try to teach my children. Man, find a good woman, then have your children, then raise them up. And when you look at the data shows you that when you're in that type of household, even if only one of the people work, then still the household income, there is very, very, very minimal disparities there. And then you see that with the kids. So it doesn't surprise me at all that it doesn't matter the race or the demographic of people, of children, if they're growing up in a nuclear household. The sky is the limit for those children. They're less likely to find themselves in poverty. They're less likely to find themselves in prison. They're less likely to have behavioral issues. You could go down the list. They're less likely to be abused, whether it's either child abuse or, SA wise. It's just crazy when you get in and start looking at the data. And why is this not promoted? You had mentioned something about the schools, and they were like, we got to get the suspensions, but no one ever wants to talk about the root cause. How do we solve the root cause? Because putting a Band-Aid on things is not going to help.
Well, if you got to the root cause, I'm gonna tell you why. Because I sat in a session with my colleagues in the school system, and we were all sitting there scratching our head when the state of Maryland is telling us, look, you got to get these suspension rates down because it's disproportionate. I'm like, disproportionate to who? And to what?
To whom? Right.
You're like, disproportionate. What do you mean? Like, we're in predominantly black schools. The disproportionality is in behavior. It's not in, the number of kids who are black versus a white school, right? The disproportionality is in behavior, and we can see that in society. There's a disproportionality, and nobody wants to talk about this, but there's a disproportionality of crime. And you made an excellent point, brother, because married nuclear family households are the great equalizer. I don't care who you are. Like you said, the an intact nuclear family is a great equalizer in society. Kids coming out of that. I'll go back to the famous Father's Day speech that Barack Obama made back in 2008 in the Chicago church. Barack Obama said, a kid growing up without a dad, regardless of who you are, a kid growing up without a dad is 5 times more likely to be poor, 9 times more likely to have problems in school, and 20 times more likely to go to prison, right? All prisons are 80% of men in prison had no fathers.
Yep.
80% of men in prisons had no fathers. And so we talk about, how the the nuclear family structure has an impact on society and homes and children. Listen, there's something that the think tanks on the left and the right have come up with called the millennial success sequence. They said, listen, if you grow up in America and just get a basic education, graduate from high school, get a job, right? You haven't had any kids out of wedlock. Don't have any kids before you get married. None of those people in America, 90% of the time, are in poverty. None of those people. If you basically get a basic high school education, don't have any kids before you get married, don't quit your job just doing something stupid, stay out of the crime, stay out of the criminal justice system, right? You're not going to be poor. You're not going to be poor. Those people are virtually not in poverty.
Absolutely. Your likelihood of finding yourself in the middle class is very high if you follow that blueprint, which is that is the instructions that I've given my boys. That is the instruction that I've given them. Do not jump out there and stunt your growth by, getting with the wrong woman or having children early, so forth and so on. Do not do it. And we went down the list and we looked at the data just so they could see it themselves. We also pulled up the child support calculators because my oldest son is in the military right now. You're in Virginia. There's a lot of military out there. And I tried to, I'm telling him, I was like, dude, do not do it. I've seen it. I know what it looks like. And if you can keep yourself from doing those things, man, I mean, the likelihood of you being a success in America is very, very high.
Yep. And so it totally dispels and debunks this whole idea of systemic racism with regard to wealth disparity, because anybody can, with following that sequence, following that plan, can be successful, like you said. Right? There's nothing holding people back. But what happens is we fail to realize that all the people who cry victimhood, like one of the things that I mentioned in my own book, I talk about my own life story and family. I said, listen, I'm not a victim being black in America. I'm not a victim. What I was a victim of was my parents' decision not to get married. I had a mom and dad who didn't marry, and so my father was out of the picture, and we were on welfare. We were a victim of circumstances and choices that people who had the power over themselves. The government didn't do that to us. The government didn't put me on welfare. America didn't do that. It was my parents. If they had followed the sequence and followed the process that they were supposed to, a biblical guideline, even a common sense guideline of how to operate as a nuclear family, or stay out of relationships that were dysfunctional, then I would not have been born in that situation. I would have had a whole different circumstance.
Let me just add this. I talked about this on your channel one time, Wise, the school to prison pipeline. And I argue that it's not school to prison, it's home. Stop by school to prison pipeline. The school, like they always start with school, but no, it starts at the house.
That's a great point.
And I think this piece of data right here that we're looking at
does. Yeah, the data says that though, Jason. The data says it. The data says that what happens at your house determines your child's trajectory.
There you go.
The data says it.
Right. And school is just an indicator. School is just a pit stop. School is just a way to say whether or not you're doing a good job, a decent job.
100%.
I mean, let's be honest, but at the end of the day, it's really home to prison pipeline.
Right.
To prison.
And that's so interesting because they when you see the pundits out there, right, who talk race hustle, they always talk about that school to prison pipeline issue. But they totally missed that factor, Jason. They've totally missed that variable of how the home is actually is what incubates, right, the individuals going to a school, and they act like it's the school's failure to educate kids well, and the kids come out with the literacy rates because prisons look at the literacy rates, and they do. Prisons
Yeah, for
look at
sure.
the prison system, the prison industry. They look at the literacy rates of a particular population in a particular city, and they determine where they want to set up prisons because they know just by statistics and data that's going to yield a certain number of criminals.
But
Period.
Absolutely.
like, let's walk it backwards then. Let's just pretend like the literacy rate is a valid number and a valid indicator. Why is the literacy rate so bad?
That's right. That's
Because
right.
they probably don't have dads in the crib.
No
And they
dads in the
probably don't
house.
have books in the house. I told y'all before, you need to have books in the house.
Yeah, books
They
are
probably don't
important.
have those.
Absolutely.
So there's things at your house. It needs to start at the house, not at the schoolhouse. It needs to start where you live, not where you drop your kids off, 9 months out of the year. Is really what you're doing well before then. And again, following the sequence, God's plan for the family, however you want to phrase it, that's where the success is. And once we variate from that, then we have these problems. But I think the reason why pundits don't want to, because again, it's the observable reality. A lot of these things we're seeing in society now, we're looking at, we can see it. It's right there in front of me, but you're telling me it's not there. Sounding like you try and pull a 1984 on me, but they don't want to admit it because they have, by saying that, they have to agree that there's a difference between a husband and a wife. There's a difference between a male and a female, that they bring something different to the to this marriage equation, that if one is not there, you got two of them, you're not going to have the right kind of balance. And you're not going to have the right kind of formula. The recipe is not going to be complete in order to be successful. Because if y'all ever bake a cake, I mean, God have mercy on you if you put more flour than eggs, because you're like, well, I don't need, I don't need baking
double the
soda.
flour.
So,
minus the egg, double the flour.
double flour. Yeah, I'm gonna
Well,
put
I think
double flour.
I think they capitalize on dysfunction.
For sure.
They're capitalizing on dysfunction, and they capitalize on our dysfunction, unfortunately. And that's why people want to talk about the school, but they don't want to actually talk about the root cause, which is the family, starting at home. They don't want to start there. So if we actually had more conversations, if our Black leaders actually were genuine and actually cared about us and not a bag, they would be telling our younger people that, hey, marriage is important. Finding a good husband, a good wife is important. And it's not only important because the word says so, but it's also important because the data says so. And they'd actually start showing and teaching the children that, hey, this will work for you. You mentioned it. Everybody talks about systemic racism, but my parents, my mom and my stepfather, they've been married for 30 plus years, and they're very, very well off down there in Atlanta. Very well off.
Where they live at, man? I didn't go by a holler at them. I need to interview them.
They live in Rockdale. But you can see it when you get people, and I look at my own situation, and I look at, a few of my friends who are married, and I'm looking at them. These are your homeowners. These are your people who have careers. These are your people that have started businesses. Their children are good people. You can just see it play out. So I would like to see more incentives for people to get married. I'd like to see more of it. It would change it. I mean, when you look at what's going on in America right now, our birth rates are down. We're not having enough children, so we're not getting married, and that's across the board, regardless of race. We're not getting married, and if they are having children, they're having children out of wedlock, and we know how that's going to play out. And we don't have enough people to replace us at this point. Correct. So, there's a lot of things that need to be changed, but it starts with getting people to be honest about the actual issue and not trying to maybe throw a Band-Aid or, sugarcoat the actual issue and just say, hey, we need more marriages. That's the reason why on Monday we talked about, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's the state of Ohio. They're implementing between Mother's Day and Father's Day, what do they call it? Natural Family Month. Between that time frame, a celebration of the natural family in Ohio. I think that's something that they should take it to the national level. Yeah. And we need to be having these conversations about natural. They call it the natural family, but really they're talking about nuclear family, mom, dad, raising children. Right. they called it, they didn't want to call it nuclear family because, you know, maybe they hurt some people's feelings, but ultimately it was asked, what do you mean by natural family? And they did go ahead and explain, yeah, mom, dad, children. And they gave
Right.
their reasons why, because of the data, you know, that you know, so eloquently presented.
And look at why that makes so much sense, right? When you got the intact nuclear family, why would a government, local, state, or federal, why would they be interested in nuclear families, right? Because it benefits society. The more you have nuclear families, crime goes down.
Crime goes down.
What interest does the government have in nuclear families? You have more citizens who go to work. And so you're contributing to society, you're contributing to the tax base. What interest would they have? And you would think they would have a vested interest in supporting the idea of the nuclear family because it benefits society, right? Not because the government tells us how to run a family, it's because it benefits, right? You having to spend less resources on prisons and policing when there's nuclear families because fathers doing their job is actually the key to solving the Chicago crime problem and murder issue.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or should say
let me
the unaliving issue. I'm sorry, go ahead.
unaliving, but also, but the more dads you have in place, and let's just say that it's pagans, like they're non-believers, they don't believe in Christ, but they're married to their wives and they have kids. That's there's more opportunity for them to be infiltrated, dare I say, inculcated by the gospel, and now all of a sudden, this former pagan man is now actually doing family devotion with his family, or family, or being a light and example to his neighborhoods and such of that nature. No, we can't have that. We would much rather have y'all just be as dysfunctional as today is Tuesday, because in that way we know that we can impede the spread of and the example of the gospel. Because at the end of the day, when the smoke clears, Wise, you and your wife, Brian, you and your wife, me and my wife, we're examples of the gospel.
Amen.
One choosing somebody who's unworthy and committing their life to them, and dare I say, willing to give their life for them. Is that not what Christ did for us? And so,
Amen.
So it's hard for them. They like, we just need y'all to be dysfunctional. We just need y'all to be sticks in the wind, just scattered hither and yon. Go ahead.
And Jason, I think we would be remiss if we didn't say this. I think we've all kind of hinted at this, and we said it without saying it. But there's an agenda to dismantle the nuclear family, and it's Marxist.
Oh, yeah.
The Marxist state, the Marxist agenda to dismantle the nuclear family, like Black Lives Matter, came out and said out their face in their manifesto, right?
Yep.
And tried to hide the hand after they threw that rock. But they wanted, like Marx, to dismantle the nuclear family. Why? Because that actually does create chaos and disorder in society. Anything that creates disorder and dysfunction in society, that makes way for the government to come in now and say, okay, now we are the savior of society, and now we're going to restore order with the Marxist regime, right? And we don't want God, we don't want family, we don't want anything that brings order. We want disorder and chaos so that we can be the solution. Like welfare, oh, we're the solution. We want blacks stuck on welfare. We're not going to tell why is it the NAACP never says anything about the importance of the nuclear family? You never hear that coming out of the NAACP. It's nothing on their website about the nuclear family and the importance of fathers, right? They asked in Fume, Kwesi and Fume, one time when he was heading up the NAACP. They was like, yo, what do you think is the most important issue facing the black community today at that time and that juncture, which I still think is the same today? What do you think is the most important issue? Was it fatherlessness or racism? And he said fatherlessness out of his mouth at that time. But you never hear that coming out of the NAACP's platform. They don't talk about, how abortion is not something that is actually helping the black community, but it's actually doing the bidding of the white supremacist system that was seeking to destroy with the implementation of the Negro Project. They don't talk about how the father at the helm of the ship in the home is actually going to help bring down the crime and increase literacy rates and increase mental stability and behavioral health in children. They don't say that, right? Because it's not in their interest to say that, because they need a chaos to operate in where there's systemic racism and race hustle, right? Because that's where they thrive.
Yeah, man, you're absolutely right there. You're absolutely right. And they've infiltrated everything. They've infiltrated the churches. They've infiltrated the school system.
Yes.
They've been playing the long game with us.
Yes.
Unfortunately, some of our leaders, some of our quote unquote leaders, they
Mhm.
are or were trained Marxists.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
That's right.
and I think
Let me.
I'd like to see us, and we're getting off track. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. No. Because and I don't want people to like mentally check out. Like, oh, they're calling people Marxists. No, I agree with Brian 100%. But I also think that there are a lot of people who are willing to go along and become very useful pawns and tools in Marxist hands. So they might not say no. They might not be card carrying Marxists, but they're willing to do whatever.
That's right.
AKA agents of chaos that are going to do nothing more than follow lockstep into this shenanigans. So, all right.
Absolutely.
Now, some reason or other, this is from the University of Virginia. I have no idea, but they misnumbered this. You see that there's 2 number 4s. So the first number 4, I'll read. Approximately 100,000 children in Virginia have a parent, usually a father, incarcerated. Children with a history of potential parental incarceration are about half as likely to get good grades in school, twice as likely to have their parents contacted for school problems, and 5 times as likely to be depressed compared to children whose parents have never been incarcerated. So that's sad, and I can totally agree and see that. And you kind of gave us that stat earlier, Brian, as well. But do either of y'all want to add something else to that?
Mhm.
When a family member goes to prison,
Mhm.
the family essentially goes with them. Unfortunately, everybody's going to play a part in that. Kids, if they want to go see dad or see mom for that matter, they're going to go through that process of going in and out that prison. Those phone calls, those collect calls, all that type of stuff. So a lot of times, unfortunately, in our communities, and we want to hold people down. And, unfortunately, the children, if you're telling them where they are, the children, they're almost in there with them, to an extent. They're almost there.
That's a
Yeah.
good catch.
Yeah.
I've been doing that. I've been doing an update on those 10 guys that escaped from the New Orleans prison, and they caught 8 of them. There's 2 left. We call it the Great Pookie Escape. Well,
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, the family is going through the ringer because of their family member has escaped. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how much they were
The
going
one
through the ringer
guy,
before.
what's his name? Antoine, I think his granddad or somebody, and he was talking about how he was stressed
Granddad,
out and can't sleep and
mom.
all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a whole bunch of the family is in upheaval because he has escaped. And I can imagine they probably getting picked up by the FBI on a regular basis, getting asked questions and such like that. And they're going through the ringer because of their family member that decided he wanted to take a summertime break from jail. And I can imagine the other instances that families experience. And I mean, it's probably pretty devastating. So as you said, Wise, when a family member goes to jail, the whole family goes. I can imagine it is probably pretty. And what does that do to a child? What does that do to a little person to
Yeah.
have to go and be intimately acquainted with the jail or the prison system? Because I got to go see my mom or I got to see my dad. I can imagine, man. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What about you,
The
Brian?
unfortunate impact of that, like I said, I spent 20 years in the school system, and so have come across kids who have parents who are incarcerated. That pattern and cycle of being institutionalized, oftentimes, too many times, the cycle perpetuates, right? And kids themselves, right? They see that as an option in society, right? Like, well, my dad went to prison, I might be going too, and so going to prison becomes a cycle. Not for every kid. It doesn't become a fulfilling prophecy, but for far too many kids, it becomes a cycle, a devastating one, if they get caught up in.
No, great catch, man. All right, let's bring this back in. All right, let's go. The other number 4. We also spotlight some good news for Virginia when it comes to marriage and family life. Although the share of Virginia children living in married families fell from 85% in 1970 to 67% in 2023, the share of children living in a married family and with their father has leveled off in recent years. Okay, that's kind of dope. What's also noteworthy is that the share of Black children being raised in a married parent family is ticking upward from 37% in 2015 to 40% in 2023. That's kind of dope. What you
Yeah, that
got,
is.
Brian?
And that's a Virginia context, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
I could see those numbers ticking up because our age, we are a generation, our age of people that did grow up without dad. So I know a lot of people that grew up in that environment, and they vowed to not have their children grow up in that. So they made a decision. So I could see in the foreseeable future, and we're also raising young men as well. I can see that number easily ticking back up. And if we can get, man, if we could get some of our leaders, and especially if we can get young people into the church, the proper church that's going to teach them properly. And unfortunately there's a lack there to an extent, but I could see that number easily ticking up. And we're starting to see some of these social services go away. We're starting to see some of our some of the women in our community who are, 1 in 4 of them are married, are starting to say, hey, it's hard out here by yourself. It's hard being out here by myself. And I think that more of them are going to be more willing or more inclined to go get and find a good man. There was a time maybe 5-10 years ago where the standards were really high. I'm starting to see those standards maybe come down a little bit to a regular, working man. He doesn't have to make $300,000 a year. And they can just take, just a good man that's going to be there, going to show up and go to work every day and be a good person and be a good man to him. So I could easily see those numbers tick up over the next 10 years from, 40. I could see us getting into the 50 percentile, probably within the next 10 or 15 years.
I like it. Hey, real quick, I'm gonna take a quick station break because I want to bring in something that might encourage us. This is just in case you're wondering, the value of a dad, the value that dads bring to the equation. This is a young girl who saw her dad for the first time. He'd been in jail since she was 2, and he came and picked her from school. You all might have seen this one.
She out after school.
Hold on. Sorry about that.
She's out now. I'm taking her.
No, I'm talking about in general.
Yes, she is.
You need to take a station break. You need to take a station break, Brian, or Wise. You need to dab your eyes real quick. Take a little.
I saw that. So, I cried already.
Yeah.
No, that was awesome, man. That was awesome to see.
Yeah, power and impact of a father, man.
Right. And the reason I brought that up, because I'm like, what we add to the equation, and again, not taking anything from moms, but what we add to the equation is life changing. This is a whole. I'm sure she probably is all cool, calm, and collected around her girlfriends, and see how quickly, how dare I say instantaneously, she said, look, I am safe. I'm so safe that I'm going to be loud and Black funeral crying in my middle school foyer just so I can make sure my dad knows I care. So I just thought that was dope, and I wanted to bring that in for a conversation.
Hey, Jason, can I share this?
Yes.
Just real quick. So so the whole idea of the value of fathers. So chapter 3 in my book. So you got to, those folks out there, you got to get the book. Chapter 3, I mentioned what chapter 3 is entitled "What Fathers Bring to the Table." Okay, what fathers bring to the table. So just a couple things that I see Jason, he got his book. So he's well versed.
I'm legit. I comment about this book a lot, man. Don't you be playing with me.
But so chapter 3, it says what fathers bring to the table. So I quoted Tupac. What Tupac was famous for saying this. He said, "Man, I know for a fact that if I had a father, I would have some discipline. I had more confidence."
Wow.
Tupac said that. One of the other things that I mentioned was that fathers teach. They give, number one, they provide structure and accountability. Right. When I was a school administrator, oftentimes when I had a single parent, was the mother. She was oftentimes with a troubled kid, and when he had behavior issues, she was frustrated. That was a frustrated mother. I done been down there 30, 40 times during that school year. I'm sick and tired of this. I don't know what else to do with him. Y'all deal with him. You know, if she come down there, she coming down there violent. She got the belt, you know. But when I was able to call a father and you know, who was married, you know, in that home, that kid might have been acting out a little bit too, because you know, he may be pushing buttons or whatever. But when I called that dad, I remember a kid specifically that I had in my office. He wouldn't take his hood off. He wanted to be a hood. He wanted to be, you know, he
A
wanted to be
literal
gangster in
hood.
school. He wanted to be a literal hood. Wouldn't take his hood off. I said, man, you got to take that hood off, dude. I'm gonna have to put you in school suspension. I called his father. His father had to say one word, dude. He was like, he said he wouldn't do what? He said, put him on the phone. I had no problem with that cat. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
because there was a father, right, there that could push a lever that mom couldn't push. Now, there's some hard moms out there, some kids were scared. Like I grew up with a single parent. I was kind of scared of my mom. I wasn't pushing too many buttons with my mom. But I knew that there was also a point at which just a limitation of what she could do to
Yeah.
me as a young man.
Mhm.
That a father can push some buttons and levers that a mom by herself just can't do. And so fathers bring that
Absolutely.
structure and accountability. Fathers teach implicitly, right? Just by kids seeing you modeling things day to day, like going to work, putting on a pair of pants, right? In and out of going in, coming out, going to work, seeing routine, seeing structure, seeing consistency. Kids learn from that. They're like, oh, I take my cue. Because oftentimes what is caught is you know what they like a kid learn more from what is
Taught.
caught than explicitly taught,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And fathers in the modeling, you know, valuable life lessons, right? Like, yo, consistency matters, right? Even if you're not nobody's no perfect dad, nobody's a perfect man, but seeing those key things, right, is crucial. There was, and the last thing I'll say, I'll shut up. But there was a young woman who grew up in a same-sex parented situation. I mentioned this in the book as well. I cited it. She wrote an article. You can actually search it out on the internet. Google it. Her article she wrote some years ago, where she talked about how, listen, I thank my gay mother and my gay mothers. I thank them for raising me and loving me in the gay community that raised me in. They showed me a lot of love, but none of them could replace the father that I wish that I had. The father size holding my heart.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's serious. Now, before we get too far, I want to say thank you so much to Wise for blessing 5 people with memberships, increasing the Dear Woke Christian Gang by 5. If you got a membership from a righteous perspective, please type ARP in the chat and just let them know. Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. It's dope that a guest, while on the panel, is out here blessing people and extending the gang even further. So thank you so much for that, Wise.
Oh, you're welcome.
Let us get back and finish up. So now we are done with the 2 4s. Let's get to number 6. Given the importance of dads, we think that Virginia should follow other states like Florida and Tennessee, shout out to the South, that have or plan to launch major statewide efforts to strengthen fatherhood on a bipartisan basis. All right, I'm gonna stop right there for a second. What if you could, Wise, the phone rings and it's somebody, some head honcho in Maryland. The phone rings, Brian. It's some big wig in Virginia, and they say, "Hey, we need your idea, your number one idea for strengthening families, and I'm sorry, strengthening fatherhood." What would you give them?
Mm. Brian, you answer that first.
Okay. So I would say, you know what? We need to do exactly what Ron DeSantis was doing down there in Florida.
Okay.
He passed a bill called the Responsible Fatherhood Act. I think that's one of the things that they were referring to. And what they were doing was putting resources into mentoring young men, fathers and would-be fathers who are, you know, who are not married, but mentoring them in the job market, right? Helping them do, you know, understand the importance of the work, you know, and how to enter the workforce ready, you know, giving them tools and supplying them with ability to be able to enter the workforce ready. You know, keeping them, you know, mentoring them such that they can stay out of the prison system, right? Out of criminality. Because again, what are they doing? They're doing exactly what a father should be doing, right? But they were putting resources into making sure that they're doing that. Why? Because if you do that, that is actually going to counteract the crime issue in your communities. That's going to counteract, you know, the number of individuals going to prisons, right? Because when you have a young man who is focused on being able to contribute to society and focused on opportunity, then he's less likely on the streets, right? Less likely going to be looking at an opportunity to get into getting that pharmaceutical money on that street
Hold on, not
pharmaceutical money.
pharmaceutical money. Not pharmaceutical money. No, I agree.
Wow.
You got
No,
anything you want to add, Wise?
yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, wow, it reminds me of the Moynihan report where they wanted to feed into, they wanted to feed into black men to help them become the leaders, the proper leaders of their households. I love that, man. That is freaking phenomenal. And another thing, man, is just really. I like the idea of that mentorship, that training and things of that nature. I think that's extremely important. But there was something that happened down in Louisiana. It wasn't the full state, but I don't know if you guys saw this, but they had some issues. They were having fights and tons of fights at the high school, and they implemented bringing dads. I think it was dads in as like security or something like that.
Yep.
And they
were
were down
walking
in
the
there
halls, greeting kids.
and they were walking the halls. They shut all of the issues and the problems that they had, offering an opportunity for dads to be involved in the school in that way was phenomenal. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see something like that happen in this state. I'm in Maryland. I'd love to see that happen, in this state. Get them walking the halls, get them a part of some of these sporting teams, coaching and volunteering and things of that nature. And maybe some volunteer opportunities, that are out there to help mentor not only the fathers, but also turn around and get them to help mentor some of these young men out there.
I love it. I love it. Great stuff, guys. All right, let's round these bases because we're almost there. All right, we're actually finished, but I'm going to finish this up. We outlined 6 sets of policy ideas to strengthen fatherhood across Virginia and focus explicitly on boys, fathers, and families. They range from efforts to make state schools more boy-friendly, I like that, to running a public service announcement PSA in the state, spotlighting the contributions that fathers make in their children's lives. Do we still have PSAs like we used to? Well, we're about in the same cohort.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have cable, so I don't watch regular TV to see any PSAs.
I don't know. Like, remember Woodsy Owl and give a hoot, don't pollute, and
Oh yeah,
remember the one that was, I guess the basis of it was, do you know where your kids are?
It's like 9 o'clock, and do you know where your kids are?
Do you know where your kids are?
Yeah, like I wonder if they still have those. If you are a cable owner, let me know. I don't know. That's a good question. But Smokey the Bear, all those little PSAs that we used to have when we were growing up. I wonder if
the McGruff, the crime dog.
Crime dog. Come on now. You don't know about that crime dog. To increasing the share of formerly incarcerated fathers who attend a parent program before they are released. Okay, I like that. In conjunction with the state's Stand Tall initiative. Okay.
I like that.
I like that. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna make sure I drop this link in the chat again. If you're interested in this is just the Good Fathers, Flourishing Kids report from the University of Virginia, the National Marriage Report, and that was informative. I like that. So definitely, if you want to check that out, I just dropped the link in the chat for y'all. I'll put it in the description as well if I didn't already. Gentlemen, I want to thank y'all, man. That was a lot of fun.
Yes, sir. Thank you for inviting me. Hey, Wise, it's good connecting with you, brother. Reach out to me.
Absolutely, man. We definitely, Jason, link us up, man, so we can get them on there and help promote this book, man. It's important, man. These are the kind of conversations that I think need to be had, especially amongst our community. And the thing is that when you start looking at the numbers, right, there are more married black men than there are black women. That's what the data says.
Wait, say again?
To be honest, I said there are more black men than there are black women.
Okay, I think you said married black men. I was like, wait. Okay, got you.
Well, there are more black men that are married, and if I misquoted that, my bad. But then there are black women, and when you start talking about the children, most black men don't have children. Over half of us don't even have children.
Really?
So there's some,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, if you look at the numbers, 54% of black men do not have children and are in the middle class. So we're not poor, and we're not just out here, spreading our seed around the way they try to make it seem.
Right, for sure. Okay.
Most of the black men that do have children, believe it or not, is actually in a marriage. Most
Okay.
black men that do have children. There's a small subset, of black men that tend to have a lot of children outside of wedlock. But most
Cam
black men
Newton.
don't have children. Yeah.
Really?
You got
Okay.
Nick Cannon
Small
and them,
subset.
Nick Cannon. There we
Nick
go, another one.
Cannon, people like that, things of that nature. So I mean, we need some education. We need some education, around this topic. And I know people, this whole, red pill, blue pill conversation, the man versus the woman, the manosphere. But the reality of it is that we need everybody to have realistic expectations about what a mate is. People need to understand that it's okay to get with somebody that is going in the right direction. I'm not saying get with a bum, but that's going in the right direction. They don't have to have everything. I've been married for quite some time, and when my wife got with me, we didn't have a whole lot. We've built a whole lot along the way.
Right.
That is okay. That is okay. And I watch my parents do the same exact thing. There needs to be some teaching around that. And honestly, man, I'd like to see, I'd like to see more and more pastors. I'd like to see more and more, of the churches like really toss out some initiatives on the importance of marriage, talking about the data. And yeah, we want to look at it from a biblical standpoint, but also let's everybody's talking about generational wealth, but it's hard to build generational wealth when the government is in your paycheck. When you got 2, 3, 4, children outside and they're taking money out of, you don't have a say so, they're garnishing it from you, via child support and things of that nature. It's hard to build generational wealth, under those circumstances. It's difficult.
Right.
These types of conversations, they need to be had.
And so, yeah, the interesting thing that I guess was an implication of what you mentioned was that a lot of the black men who are married aren't marrying black women, so they're either marrying outside of the.
I'm gonna disagree with that. If you look at the data, 85% of black men that are married to black women, and when you look at the wages, the more money they earn. Now we're not talking about the celebrities. We're not talking about them. I'm just talking about upper echelon black men that earn, maybe 100,000 plus, somewhere in that range. They're overwhelmingly married to black women, believe it or not. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, yeah, there's some outside, there are some, outside marriages out there, but majority of black men that are married, they are married to black women, large majority.
And the subgroup really that you're talking about is, and Moynihan brought this out, and this was true back in the 60s, that the group that's really having the most kids are urban. When you're talking about people in the suburbs, like, who are more educated and things of that nature, you find a lot of blacks in the urban sector are educated as well, but larger populations of blacks, a lot of blacks live in urban areas, right? They live in urban cities. And so when you get to the suburbs where, you got blacks that are a different category, they're more education, more, degrees, more, job opportunities, things like that. They don't have as many kids, but where do you see the concentration of the population in the urban sectors? And that's where the data is coming when we see the father absence issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, well, gentlemen, I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much for dropping some knowledge. I appreciate y'all and taking the time tonight. I know Wise, we joke with you and saying I know it's past your bedtime, but I do appreciate you for real.
Hey, I'm getting off here. I'm going upstairs. I'm gonna take a shower and go to bed. Hey, you got me out past my bedtime. Well, normally I'm winding down. I'm reading a book and I'm starting to wind down for the day.
I got you, man. I appreciate you. And guess what? Soon you'll have this book to read. There you go.
Yeah,
see, I did that, Brian.
Yeah, let me know where I can send it to you, man. I got you, Wise. Let me know where I can send one to you.
Perfect.
But
is you how do you have it? How are you selling it? Is it only paperback? Do you have audio versions? What do you?
I've got an ebook. I've got a paperback. But like I said, either way, I can send it to you. If you're an ebook reader, I can just forward.
I can go either way.
Okay.
I prefer the paperback. If you want to.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah. So let me know where I can get it.
Wait, did you sign my copy?
Okay.
I don't think you signed my copy. Man.
You didn't
Man.
get
Gotta ask,
the
man.
official sign? I think you got one of my first published copies.
I got the first one, yeah.
I think you got one of my first published copies.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I'll take it. I'll take that. You try to make me feel good. I got you. Well, guys, go on and go to bed, man. I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much,
J-Dub,
gentlemen.
appreciate you, bro.
Man, thank y'all for coming with me. I
Wise, look forward
appreciate
to
y'all.
talking to you, brother.
Rock with
Yes,
me.
sir.
Hey,
Yes,
by the
sir.
way, Brian, you did not. Can you put your link in the chat real quick for everybody?
Let me get that link. Let me get that link.
I think I remember it. Let me. I might remember it myself.
I can put it there for you. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I don't have it. But and then Wise, can you drop? Thank you again, Wise, for the very gracious gifting of memberships. But could you drop the link to your channel in the chat
Yep,
as
will
well?
do.
I want to make sure everybody knows where to find my guests. Brian done dipped out on me. He done went incognito on me.
Still here.
I don't
I'm getting that link. I'm getting that link. Give me 1 second.
Yes, Mr. Brown. It don't matter. But that was a good conversation. I want to say thank you so much to the guests, as well as
it
to the
was.
best live chat on the internet. There we go. Go check out A Righteous Perspective. He will be live. You're going to be live tomorrow, right?
Absolutely. Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come check us out, man. If it's your first time, let me know so we can show you some love in the chat.
There we go. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you, brother.
Did
Brian
it come up for you,
Shannon,
Jason?
sir?
Is it coming up for you? I'll just put it in the
I
chat.
see it right here. Yep, I got it right here. All right. So if you would like to, and I would love for you to do so, check out my guest Brian Shannon's book. I just dropped the link in the chat, and I did send you all the email already, Wise, so y'all have each other's contact information. But definitely check out this book. I do not think you'll be disappointed. You will not be emailing management at dearwokec@gmail.com saying, how dare you tell me to pick up this book. You'll be very encouraged. So I really think you'll like it. So check it out over there. I'm gonna let y'all get out of here. Gentlemen, have a fantastic night. Brian, Wise, thank y'all both for rocking with me tonight. I'm gonna get ready to shut the doors myself.
All righty, man. Appreciate you, brother.
You got it. Y'all have a great night. Take care, fellas. See you
man,
soon.
Take care.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much, everybody. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad that Brian and Wise were able to stop through. It's always good to have a good conversation with some brothers about such a great topic of fatherhood and how we can encourage and build each other up. Hopefully, this was something great. And the link for the article that we were going over, the report, is right here in the chat. Of course, my guest contact information is here as well. So please check them out. I'll make sure I put it in the description tomorrow. I might put it in tonight if I hang out, but otherwise I hear the girls, they want me to hang out with them. So anyway, thank y'all so much for rocking with me. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Let's get ready to do this again very soon. So until then, everybody, grace and peace. Take care.